Welcome to the Matt O'Grady Coaching Podcast. This is where Matt shares all his ideas on how to be happier, more successful, and enjoy life to the fullest. Please go to mattogradycoaching.com and thelivinggratitudebook.com to learn more and receive your free micro-coaching session with Matt.
Welcome to the Matt O'Grady Coaching Podcast, mattogradycoaching.com. Today we're going to talk about 5 simple, practical steps to happiness. And I came up with this list while pondering life, as I often do. Every day, sometimes multiple times a day, I take a few minutes, sometimes much longer, and I look at my own life. I look at what I'm thinking and feeling, what I'm desiring and wishing for, and I watch what's going on inside me. And I also ask the question, what can this teach me? What can I teach others to help them? So, just a little inside information into how these podcasts get created. I know some of you are really interested in knowing more about my process and system and kind of what my history is and who my teachers were and all these different things. And I talk more about it in other podcasts. And, if you're a coachant, you get a chance to hear a lot more of that history. But I'm happy to share it here too. So feel free to ask me any questions over at mattogradycoaching.com. Just hit the contact button and be happy to chat with you about just about anything. So the first on the list here is a really important point that I think gets lost, and that's why I put it first, because the others on the list are going to be a little more common. And I'm sure you've heard this one, but the first one is to connect with your inner voice. Now, some may use the word intuition here. And our intuition is working all the time. It's always happening. Our inner voice is there. The question is, are we taking the time? Are we investing the time into really listening to it? Now, a lot of people think that, well, of course I listen to my intuition, I trust my gut, I move forward, I'm a decision maker, that kind of thing. But what we often don't realize, unless we're really mindful people, is that the intellect, the ego, if you will, the thinking apparatus in our lives will often completely steamroll the intuition, completely steamroll the emotional life, completely steamroll any sort of subtle, deeply intimate aspects, and it just goes to get the job done, to move things forward, to be busy, to do. It's focused on action, And listen, of course, taking action is an important part of life, but inspired, intuitive action is much better than just action for action's sake. So I highly recommend that you take time every day, even if just for a minute or two, literally a minute or two per day, to just sit back and listen to what the inner voice is saying. Let's do it right now, because these are the 5 practical, simple and practical steps to happiness. So I want to make sure that you walk away from this podcast with at least a real way to use these 5 points. So it's important to just relax as much as possible. You may be driving, you may be on your jog, you may be at the gym, you may be somewhere listening to this podcast, but just do your best to just check in with yourself. Just relax the body as much as you can. This isn't a meditation, don't worry, you don't have to close your eyes. Just begin to feel the body, just noticing the body, coming into the body. We're getting grounded. You don't have to close your eyes to get grounded. Simply awakening to the reality of your real experience. And from that relaxed place, just begin to notice any subtle, intuitive aspects that might be moving through you right now. Just simply open up to the idea of the intuition in the inner voice, and we'll often see a vision or feel something or get an idea to call someone or be reminded of something that's really important to us. And just notice what's there for you. Just set the intention that you're going to connect with your inner voice, and simply open and listen and see what is there. And you may not get something today, and that's okay too. It's like any muscle, right? It just needs to be worked out over time, and it will get stronger. So that's literally how simple the task is. It's that simple. It's really a matter of just taking a few moments to relax, to get connected, to get grounded, and then simply set the intention to listen to the inner voice and then open up to what's there. You may have received something, and then it's really important to remember it, to write it down, to send yourself a text, to do whatever you have to do to remind yourself that this came to you from an important, powerful place within you. And I think if you practice this on a daily basis, you won't want to live your life without it over a period of time, because it's so helpful to nurture the subtle, innocent, vulnerable, sensitive places within us. And all of what we talk about today will be related to this, but this is the one that I think is often very difficult for a lot of people to feel like they're truly and authentically connecting with their inner voice. They feel like they haven't been taught, they don't know how, they can't relax enough, whatever excuses and reasons we come up with, none of them are true. Okay? That's just noise. You can do anything you want to do, but you need to be relaxed enough and focused enough to be able to follow through. And it's really that simple at the end of the day. So let's move on to number 2, because this is a really important one as well. I think it's also something that kind of gets pushed to the side. This list of 5 things you'll notice are things that, most of us know are a really good idea and would be really helpful to practice them on a daily basis, but we often find all sorts of reasons not to do it, or not to do it consistently, or, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week. I'm going to go to that retreat in a few months, so I'm just going to kind of go as is right now. and then life is just passing us by. So I really want to inspire you to take the time for yourself. Literally 5 or 10 minutes a day could be your practice. That's it. And then it can build and expand and grow from there. But if you have a 5 or 10 minute practice that you're working on yourself every day to check in, listen to your inner voice, and number 2 on this list, to watch your thoughts with no judgment. Once again, it's as simple as relaxing, grounding, and watching. Just noticing what moves through you. Right now you have the influence of my words, so you may have inspired thoughts, you may have resistant thoughts, you may have neutral thoughts, but thoughts are almost always happening. Unless you're in a really deep state of meditation or some kind of high-level vibration experience, thoughts are running through us. There's often an avalanche of thoughts. If you've ever had a panicky moment or really stressful time, we know it feels like this tidal wave of thoughts just smashing down upon us, and we feel crushed under the weight of them. And even on a daily basis, we can feel that stress moving through when we're really busy, or we've got a deadline, or we've got something, that we tell ourselves is really important coming up. There's often this pressure, self-induced pressure, and simply stepping back, relaxing, grounding, and watching the thoughts can alleviate so much of that pressure. And we just start to see what's really moving through us. Most of this is going to be from the intellect, but sometimes the thoughts can be really subtle, and we miss them. And as we start to take a look at them, objectively, we just simply step back and watch. We just become watchers. And of course, if you listen to this podcast, I think it's important to do for the body, and as you will see in number 3, the emotions. But it's so important to learn how to observe ourselves so that we learn from it. It doesn't mean we instantly become enlightened, but you become much more enlightened when you watch who and what you are and what is moving through you, because those are the ingredients to your life. Your thoughts are directing your life. You're making decisions. You're allowing wherever you got this information from, whether it was from your parents or teachers or coaches or whatever influencers you had when you were young, to the point now your influencers are a podcast, news, articles, books that you read, magazines that you read, people that you spend time with, people that you listen to, even if you don't think you agree with them. What they say and do is affecting you. Vibrationally, that is an impression that you take in through your eyes and your ears and through your being, and you are now assimilating that experience into your life. Whether you agree, disagree, or feel neutral, it's still an influence on you. So really important to manage and be conscious of what we allow into our lives, whether it's our own thoughts or someone else's words and thoughts. And we can become conscious and choose what we want to allow in. Some podcast that we find is really helpful to our lives, or anything that we find is nurturing and loving and helpful. That's really what we want to focus on allowing in, right? Because that's going to be what's going to allow us to continue to advance towards what we want most in life. Joy, happiness, success, peace, love, beauty. That is where we want to go, whether we know it or not. That's what we want. We want those high-level vibration experiences. But if we don't know what we're thinking, we don't know what information is moving through us, it's really difficult to get clear enough to then direct our lives towards what we want most. So learning how to step back and watch our thoughts is a really important aspect of our work, of our self-actualization, our self-realization. And number 3 is just as important and directly related to watching our thoughts. And so we're going to do a bit of a combination of our thoughts and feelings exercise right now, because we know they go hand in hand, right? We think, and as we're thinking, we feel something related to what we're thinking. So as we go through our days, through our lives, thoughts and feelings are really integrated, although we have this amazing ability to be able to observe them separately to a certain degree. I'm sure there's some overlap because life is one, but at the same time, we have this amazing mind to be able to really hone in and focus specifically on what our thoughts are and or what we are feeling, and checking in on our emotions. Really investing time into emotional intelligence is one of the absolute best decisions I've ever made in my life. Learning that we are emotional beings is so important, So absolutely important and directly related to connecting with our intuition, connecting to our inner voice, as we talked about in number one. So important, because how we feel is our emotional GPS, right? It is that information that tells us what direction we're pointed in, what area we're moving into. So if we feel fear, for example, we know that we're coming face to face with something that we have told ourselves is dangerous. It may not be at all, right? Like the irrational fear of going up in front of our classes in high school or middle school to give a speech. That's just like this typical thing, right? It's one of the number one fears in the United States is public speaking. And I still, even though I've done it thousands of times at this point, between podcasts and videos and TV shows and, just different things that I've done, live events and giving presentations for my digital marketing company, whatever it is, I've literally done thousands of public speaking types of things. And I still can feel some of the patterns of fear, even though my mind is clear and my heart is inspired and I'm like ready to go. Like my palms may still get sweaty, I may still have butterflies. But what I've taught myself throughout the years is that that's excitement, because fear and excitement are often have a lot of this similar characteristics. It's just kind of the filter that we decide through what we're feeling. So if we begin to choose to believe that we're getting excited and inspired and uplifted, we can transform that fear into joy and excitement. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that so amazing? But the only way we can get there is by being aware of what we're thinking and feeling. So let's do some of that now. Let's relax again. Just let the body fall into place, even if you're driving, right? There's nothing wrong with relaxing a little bit as you drive. Let those shoulders down. Let your belly be relaxed. Don't clench your hands or your feet. But keep yourself safe if you're walking at the gym, in the car, whatever. Just make sure you're safe, but relax as much as you can. Go feel grounded. Feel your body. Be awake in your body. And begin to notice what you're feeling. And you can just simply go inside and begin to look. There's often some really obvious emotional quality to what we're experiencing. And hopefully, since you've been listening to this podcast for some minutes now, it's been feeling good. You have some positive emotions moving through you, some hope, some excitement, some inspiration. But be true to whatever it is you're actually feeling, because maybe not. Maybe this is intense. Maybe this is, moving towards happiness brings up resistance for you. It's all possible. So just begin to notice what you're feeling, what emotional state you're in. And it can change. It can be moment by moment. Emotions are a journey, but they color our whole life experience. It's so important to know what we're feeling. And for the sake of this exercise, you don't have to change anything. It's really just about being mindful, being aware of what we're experiencing. Same with the thoughts. We're just trying to be objective here. We're aiming to be relaxed, conscious, present to what we're experiencing, and just being with that, regardless of what it is. From joy and ecstasy to fear, doubt, worry, stress, dread, anything in between, just notice what you're feeling. And accept it. Just accept it for this moment. That's what it is. But you can also accept with the knowledge and the wisdom that it can and will change, because that's who we are. We're changeable beings. Life is always changing right in front of us. So up until this point, we've talked about connecting with our inner voice, being aware of our thoughts, being aware of our feelings. And from that place, I want to move to number 4, which has really been interesting for me since Thanksgiving of this year. Several months ago, I decided to reinvigorate my gratitude and appreciation practice and to really step back and notice what it is that I'm experiencing, to really open up to a deeper practice, because I know how powerful it is. I've been practicing it for 2 decades, and it's really important, especially when you've been practicing something for so long, to take a fresh look at it and to see what other depths of wisdom are available. And it's been radically powerful for me, because I've always been so inspired by appreciation, by this feeling of noticing what we have, what we already have in our lives, and allowing this feeling of gratitude and thankfulness and appreciation to move through us. Because as many of the ancient mystical teachings, from the Bible to the Quran to the Torah to all powerful, the Buddhist teachings, will tell us that gratitude and appreciation, enjoyment of what we have, is so important. Because if we're always out grasping for what we don't have, we live life in a state of not having. Now, don't confuse this with me saying that desires are bad or anything like that. I don't subscribe to that philosophy at all. I believe that desires are beautiful, but our true divine, inner voice desires are what we want to connect with most, which really is not related to material things. Because material things, appointments, outward successes will never truly, long-lasting, give us what we think they're going to. Because what we're actually going for with any and all of those things is the feeling that we think it's going to give us. So if instead of going just for, it doesn't mean you can't aim for material things or achievements and successes in your life. By all means, please do. But do it with consciousness. Do it with awareness. Be aware that what you're really going for is this feeling that you think that achievement is going to give you. And as you become aware of that, you realize that every day you can be going for that feeling. You don't necessarily need that thing. There are other aspects in your life that you may already have that can help you to feel the same way. It's just that by the nature of being human beings, we always want more, deeper, better, stronger, more interesting, more luxurious, more whatever, more. However, if we take time each day, once again, just a minute or two every day, to be grateful. I do a minute or two an hour, but that's something to work towards. And it's not every day. I don't remember every hour of every day, but most days I remember at least several times a day to do it. And often it's 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and it's just it completely changes my day. And it completely changes my coaching clients' days as they've instituted a really significant appreciation, thankful, gratitude practice. And as I take a nice deep breath, I'm literally practicing gratitude for the breath. And the reason I start there, the reason I practice every day being thankful for my breath, is that it's always there. It's something that is so important from a mystical, meditative, kind of human experience. The breath is what connects us with the unseen. The breath is so powerful. Without it, physically, our body would die. But there's so much more to it than that. And as we just begin a practice of appreciation for the breath on a daily basis, you start to see the wisdom that it has in it inherently to teach us about ourselves, about our bodies, about our minds, about, so much. I could do hours of a podcast and series just on gratitude and the breath, but for today, notice what you have, whether it's from the breath or a body that works well, or the senses, or the ability to speak and hear, to listen, to connect, to direct our attention, the ability to focus. How about hugs? How about looking into someone's eyes that you love? How about just running water, food in the fridge, a roof over your head, clothes on your body? There is so much to be grateful for every day if we look for it, if we know how to look for it, if we practice it. Any relationships that are important to us that we have, those are something to be grateful for. Do you have a job? Do you have any money in your bank account? Anything that you have already is worth being grateful for. Practicing appreciation for what we have will only help us, never hurt us, always help us. How many things can you say in your life that are always good for you? And the practice of appreciation is always good for you. And it could be the simplest thing. You can just appreciate a color, or a leaf blowing in the wind, or the sound of birds, or music that you love, or anything. There's millions of things every day we could be grateful for, and it can completely transform your day, your attitude, your mind, your focus. It is very powerful. And if you haven't gone deep into the practice of appreciation, gratitude, thankfulness, I highly, highly recommend it, because it is life transformative. I'm going way over, so I want to be sure to move on to number 5. Number 5 is one of my favorites as well, and something we also often forget, and that is nurturing ourselves, the practice of self-love, just simply being kind to ourselves. And with our thoughts and our feelings, we can often notice that we're very judgmental of ourselves, very condescending. We're not enough, we're not good enough, we didn't do a good job, why did I say that, why did I do that, I can't believe I did that. Whatever it is that moves through us that's negative, whatever it is that moves through us in that thought process of not being good enough, not being worthy, or just wanting to, kind of let our fear and our doubt and our worry kind of consume us and hold us back from the beauty and miracles and the possibilities for our lives. Because that's really what's happening when we practice self-criticism, self-judgment. We are as far away from self-love as we can get. So, and a lot of times it's just the pattern that we grew up with, that we were taught by our parents or someone else, or that we just fell into for whatever reason. And now it's been going on for many years, in some cases many decades, piled on top of one another. So it's this pattern that's almost feels insurmountable to change. But I'm here to tell you that it can change, and it will change if you focus on self-love. You don't need to do anything about that self-criticism process if you don't want to. I mean, it can be very helpful to become aware of it and to pause, relax, and gently shift our focus in another direction. However, just by practicing self-love consciously for that couple minutes a day, you will begin to nurture yourself enough that this energy kind of overflows and falls into all the areas of your life, and will just naturally have the self-criticism and self-judgment begin to lessen, begin to wash that pattern away, because the self-appreciation, the self-love practice, the self-nurturing practice can be so powerful. And it's just simply being kind to ourselves instead of being self-critical, right? So if we are taking the time to be nurturing of the self, it can simply be a relaxation practice. It can be going to get a massage. It can be taking a few minutes a day to practice whatever or play with whatever pastime it is that we have. Not just, watching TV can be a pastime, but, I don't find TV to be really, truly a self-love practice. It's really more of a distraction, or, something that, allows us to indulge in some other drama or comedy or something of someone else's lives or someone else's perspective. It's okay. I mean, listen, as long as it's not out of balance, I think a little TV is certainly manageable. But, a lot of us are doing 5-10 hours of TV per day. And that's just, really throws our lives out of balance. It goes back to that influence that we're allowing into our lives. We're allowing these TV shows or these news shows or whatever to essentially tell us what is true, instead of us deciding and choosing what is true for our own lives. So as we practice self-love, it could simply be something as practical as doing some stretching for our bodies, right? Because we work all day and we do whatever it is we do, and we often don't stretch. People will run or work out or do something else, quote unquote, positive, but it's got this big action focus on it. And stretching needs to be a little gentler, a little more subtle, a little more intimate, a little more quiet. And most of us don't do that, but we know it's a really helpful practice. Or meditation can be a very self-loving practice. Just a couple minutes a day of watching the breath, relaxing the body, just being there with our thoughts and feelings. Oh, imagine that. Meditation. You get almost all 5 of these. You could do a 5-minute meditation and focus on these 5 aspects, 1 minute each. And there you go. You've done your self-practice. You're connecting with the inner voice, and you're watching of thoughts and feelings, and you're being in appreciation for what you have, and then taking a minute to wrap up your 5-minute meditation with some self-love, some appreciation for who you are, what you've done, what you're working on, and where you're going. And with that, we're going to be a wrap. Thank you guys so much for everything. It's just been an amazing journey with you over these last, oh my God, I can't believe it's going to be, we're going to be going into the 7th year of the podcast, from the Matt and Phil show to transforming into the Matt Grady Coaching Podcast. And I just thank you so much for being on this journey with me, and all of your comments and questions and shares. I mean, we're just getting so many thousands of downloads every month that I know you guys are sharing it like crazy, because I barely even post these. Now it's just kind of on autopilot. You guys are sharing it for me. If you ever want to do me a favor, that's a huge favor. If you ever want to pay it forward or give back to me in a way, sharing it on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. is really a great way to go. And I really appreciate it. Feel free to tag me, and I'll comment on it. Thank you so much. Big love, guys. Talk to you soon. MattO'GradyCoaching.com.